Picture this. You are a hiker, hiking right after it's been raining the last night, quite heavily too, and you start to slip on mud. It's just mud, you think to yourself. It's just mud. So you keep on walking, and you keep on stumbling on mud, and you're like, oh drat, the mud is really, really muddy today. Oh my god, it's so slippery. And suddenly, your legs feel quite wobbly. You realize, as you look down, that there is only mud. There has always only been mud. There will always only have been, is still mud. And you look down at your legs. They aren't legs anymore. You look down at your feet. What were feet anyway? Did you even know what feet meant? No, you did not. You only knew mud. You could only think mud. There were no thoughts in your head. There was only mud. There was no brain in your head. What even was a head? There was only mud. And all of a sudden, the loud clang of a gate wakes you from this hallucination, you reckon. And you discover that everything's back to normal. The rain's pelting down heavier and heavier now, but your feet are back. You pat yourself nervously down and laugh. Oh my god, I was just having a silly moment. Little did you know, you were already one with the mud. The mud had beckoned to you. And the mud will always know. The mud always knows where you are. And from that point on, everything had changed. Something had changed within you. And when you go back home, you start to fall asleep. And strangely enough, you could still hear the squelching of mud beneath your feet. And you look down, and you realize that you weren't in bed. Oh no, you were in mud. You weren't only in mud, though. You were the mud. You were one with the mud. There was nothing you could feel except the mud. And at last, at peace, you knew that you would be free from all your human troubles. Human ambitions? No, there were none, for you were mud. There was no ambition but to lie and be one with the earth and all other mud. You awoke that morning, cold and shivery, but with a strange sort of acceptance. You knew that there was no escaping it now, so you head off onto the hills, and you continue to search for the mud. And you know what? You found the mud, and the mud found you. And later on that day, you shook your mud fist at the mud moon. It wasn't even a moon, it was mud. But you knew the name was moon. The moon was the name of that particular piece of mud. And all your neighbors peered out from within their mud houses. Were they even human? No, they were mud. There was no human, only mud. And so mud took over your life. You carried a little vial of mud wherever you went. And whenever people asked you what the fuck it was, you replied, there is no mud. I am the mud. This is me. And they would stare at you confused. Rightly so, because they weren't enlightened. They didn't know the wonders that is mud. But, you did. So, every single time you went up that hill, you remembered. And you knew that mud was there for you. And mud, even if it was all you knew, that was enough, because mud was mud. How good is mud? Mud, 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 mud. Mud, mud, mud. Mud, 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 mud. And you would do your daily chant. And you would do your daily chant, you know. Mud, 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 mud. And, you know, that was great. No one questioned it because we were all mud. Oh my God. We were all mud. They were mud. She was mud. He was mud. Z was mud. You know, everyone was mud. They were all mud along with you. You special, special bean. You know, except you weren't a bean. You were mud. Oh, who's a good little mud? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Oh my God. Mud. But then you thought about it, and it was like, well, if I'm mud, and if everything is mud, then why am I having these thoughts? Why, when only mud supposed to exist, and no thought, no brain, no human, why thoughts in head that aren't mud? Why thoughts in head about test? No test, for I am mud. I need no test. I mud, and that is enough. And then you start to cry. You start to cry mud tears, because you realize that you aren't mud. And it's a tragedy, I know, but you aren't mud, and it brings tears to your eyes, and you start crying. Your wife asks why you're crying and why you've been acting so odd and chanting and covering your face with mud the past few days. You don't deign to answer her. She wouldn't understand. No one would understand what you've just been put through. You thought you were mud. The mud lied to you. You aren't mud. And she points at several odd-looking mushrooms next to you, and she's like, "Honey, have you been taking those again?" And you don't deign to answer, but you all knew that question. You thought it was mud? No, it was the shrooms. But, you know, maybe you were mud. Maybe that's okay. No, it really isn't. But mud. Mud, mud, mud. The mud waves goodbye. And silence.